Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another amazing podcast episode of She Sites She Paw special feature. And today we have with us a smiling, enthusiastic person who is going to share her life story so far, which I'm sure will be inspiring for all women out there, not just women, for everybody out there. Let's get started. Let me welcome Kathy Kaufman from the United States. Kathy, can you just quickly give us who are you?
I would describe myself as I'm very alive.
Mhm.
I would say that. I'm not, I'm about to be 76 years old. I still ride my bicycle 5 miles every day. I do Pilates every day. I live in an over 55 community where there are a lot of disabled people, and I see what I don't want to have for my future every day. So I'm determined to just keep taking really good care of myself and being alive and meeting interesting people. And I do, because if you are open to that, they show up.
Exactly. So that brings me to the second question. Looking at your life journey as a woman, as a career, a professional, as well as your life experience in the field of relationships and family and everything. What do you think are the major lessons that you think you want to share to the world in terms of for women specifically, younger women?
Right. Like
Yeah.
you want to take really good care of yourself. Okay? Because if you don't, and if you don't think this could happen to you when you're young, you can't imagine that you'd ever be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So you have to really make sure you take care of yourself and don't end up in a wheelchair because you will, I promise you, if you don't take care of yourself and keep exercising. Your legs will become weaker. You will fall down. You can break your hip, and then you could die from pneumonia. So you got to take care of yourself. And I don't care if you have a family. I had a family. At the time when I was younger, I used to rollerblade. As soon as they got on the bus, I went out and I was rollerblading. I loved rollerblading. I love skating. But there's a certain point where you just say, you're going to fall down. And not because you're not good at rollerblading, because someone else on a trail will suddenly show up or block the whole thing. And you're like, get out of the way. And they don't, and then you crash. And so take really good care of yourself and stay fit. So for example, I've been riding my bicycle for 70 years.
Wow.
I
Amazing.
started when I was 6 years old, and I never stopped.
That's brilliant. I think that's very important again. Now, let's get into your career now and your profession. And
Okay.
um, I know that you started off as first in arts and then into engineering or technology and then now into medical and genetics technologies and other things. So can you just, take us through that journey of where you started?
Sure. I mean, I went to one of the best art schools
Mhm.
in the nation, Pratt Institute. I don't know if people have heard of that, but when I went, it was the most renowned art school in the United States. It's in New York City.
Yep.
You have to send them a portfolio. And I was competing. I didn't know it at the time, but I was competing with the High School of Art and Design in New York City and other New York City high schools that were art schools, right? I didn't know it. I lived in rural Long Island, which is about where I was 60 miles from New York City. And it was all potato farms, and I went to a high school that had 125 kids in it. And art was not important.
Mhm.
And it's still not important in the US. It's,
Not important, in fact. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, it's considered like
Yeah.
not as important as science or math or other fields.
Correct.
And yeah,
I think it's
so,
because of the financial aspects primarily, the career
well,
prospects that comes.
exactly. They're like, you can't make any money in the US. In the US, no one is going to give you financial support to do
Yeah.
art. The US, it's very difficult for creative people to financially survive. So, anyway, I was really lucky.
Mhm.
I got a full scholarship to Pratt Institute.
Wow.
Like they thought I had talent, and I do have talent. I have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
But Pratt, they don't like high school art schools because the art schools train the students to be a certain kind of artist,
Mm.
and Pratt did not like a stamp on their artist. They wanted raw student that they were going to put their stamp on, right? So they saw potential. I think my dad knew somebody in the administration there, so there was a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And I had to have an interview, and they gave me a full scholarship. Now, just because you have a full scholarship to college, just want your audience to know, doesn't mean you don't need money. You know, art supplies are very expensive. Like
Mm.
when I've done this painting that's opposite me, uh, to make it probably cost me $300.
Yeah. So after your initial art career, when did you shift into technology? When did you get into Microsoft?
Well, I just want people to know also that when I was in high school, my science teacher asked me when I was a senior, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I want to be an artist and a scientist.
Mm.
And he said, no, you can't be both. You got to choose one or the other. And guess what? You don't have to choose. You could be both. So what happened was I also was smart enough when I went to college to not just take all of these art courses. I worked long hours in art school because the studio classes are 3 and 6 hours long. And then you have all the humanity courses that everybody else takes at college. So you spend long hours in art school. It's much harder than regular college. And I just art teaching degree as well. So when I graduated, I was a certified teacher.
Great.
So I started teaching,
Mm.
right, as a career.
Mm.
And uh, I quickly realized it was a bad time. They kept downsizing me every June, and then they'd call me back in September. I was very insecure. And I did that for 5 years, and I had to deal with a lot of kids acting out in class because kids that are troubled, they, if they need help, they're going to show teachers
Mm.
they need help, right? And so um, I spent 10 years, I don't think I even put this in my bio. I spent 10 years when I was older raising my children, going into high schools and teaching, showing my paintings.
Wow.
And I did abstract paintings to recover from sexual abuse by a grandfather, my mother's father, and from family violence. And I spent 10 years going into high schools using my abstract art, asking the kids, what do you see here? And they were brilliant. They could see.
I mean that is brilliant, Kathy. I'm really impressed by what you said some time ago, where you wanted to be both an artist and a scientist.
Right.
So talking about and again the second thing what you when you shared about using your art to educate the high school students about sexual abuse, that's I mean that's really fascinating, I would say. You were talking about your experience several decades ago, right? But how do you think children of today, are you aware of how children of today are, do you think they are more aware of the sexual abuse and other things, or how do you
Oh
see?
yeah, it's much more out there now. The Me Too movement.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've paid attention to
Yeah.
how many famous women have
Yes.
Harvey Weinstein, all of these famous actresses
Yeah.
that got harassed and abused when they were trying to work their way up to being famous.
Good.
Um, the stats, I don't know what the stats where you are, but the stats here in the US are, and these are just the boys and girls who tell
Yeah.
that this is happening to them. 1 out of 4 girls, 1 out of 7 boys.
That's really
And so,
even
yeah,
now, even now.
yeah. And, back in the 50s, it was
Mm.
unheard of that this was happening.
Mm. I mean, it's
One,
because it's because people were not talking about it. It's not that
right. They weren't
it didn't
talking about it.
happen. Probably it
Yeah,
was happening in every household.
that's right.
Yeah.
And we don't even need to spend a whole lot of time on the Catholic Church, but you can watch a very famous movie called Spotlight That got a lot of awards, and that was about journalists in Boston who started to find out about priests who were molesting children. And one priest in Boston molested over 3,000 children in high school. Now, and if you understand what that means, especially if they're men, but now women too, if they don't get help, they're gonna, it's like vampires. It's like you get bit and now you are one,
Yes.
right? So you're going to either internalize it, which a lot of women do, or you're going to act it out if you're a man.
Yeah.
And women are doing it too. I used to invite students to come up to me after I gave a talk and with my paintings about all of this. They would get in line like 90% of the class to tell me and this happened to me and what, so and I always make sure I had resource when I get in to do a speech so that when this happened, I was like, please go talk to this person over here. They're going to help you.
Yeah, that's true. And how do you think, I mean, based on that, so once you conduct your sexual abuse related class and workshop, um, how do you think, or what are the some of the strategies that children of today can take care? Do you have any?
Okay. Well, it's pretty horrifying when you're a child. I used to be smart. My mother would actually send me to her mother's house, and I loved my grandmother very much, and I'd like to go, but that's where this person was.
Yeah.
And I thought I could outsmart him,
Mm.
you know, like she would, Crohn's disease runs in the family, and my grandmother would not feel well and she was going to
Yeah.
send you with him to his work. And I would think, well, he can't do anything to me in the car. Everyone will see, right? Well, that wasn't very bright. And most of the time he would come in the middle of the night where I was sleeping. So I started sleeping in this closet down in the kitchen. I would take my pillow and blanket down there, and I would sleep there because he was too obese to get near that place. And nobody was asking, why is she sleeping? Or, there are spiders and, you know, why doesn't she stay in her bed? Nobody asked that
Mm.
because they knew. And honestly, I have sympathy for my grandmother and my mother. My mother also got the same treatment from him, but she never got any help.
Mm.
And I, at one point, said to her, look, I'd like to have a better relationship with you, but if we're never going to have a better relationship unless you get some help. It's like a closet and there's things in there you have to clean out. All right. So you take everything out of the closet and then you like, I want this, I want that. And you throw everything else out and get rid of it. You clean the closet and you get help to
Yeah.
clean that closet. And my mother looked at me and she spent a minute staring in my face and she said, I will never clean that closet. So I never really got to know my mother very well because all the therapists I saw said, you have to stay away from toxic people, even if they're your mother.
Exactly. Oh my God, that firstly, I'm really, what do you call, I, it's
I
a
know. Trust
hard
me, I know.
to even, I'm so sorry that you had to go through all that in your young
Mhm.
childhood and everything. I know so it can affect the entire personality of a person when a child actually goes through that.
It can kill them, Dr. Sharma. It can.
Your journey from abused child in your or having an abusive childhood from there to actually working in this domain for 10 years, educating more and more children about this, and that's like a, I would say, the greatest service to humanity that you have done. And I'm sure a lot of children who have benefited from your intervention would be still thanking you for their life. I mean, that's brilliant, Kathy. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps when you share the story from your childhood and what you have done to save more children out of that. Um, yeah, so I think after that, I think now we should get into the next stage in your life where after that 10 years, what happened to you, where you became a mother and then you have
I was a mother, and
technology.
I was doing artwork, and I was having lithographs made, and they were getting sold. There's
Mm.
But it's not enough.
Mm.
It's not enough. My son, I wanted my son to be able to go to college, and he did, and he's the president of his company now
Mm.
here in Atlanta. And his college, it's a very good college, and he got a lot of scholarships, but it was still $250,000.
Yeah. Mm. Mm.
Yeah. So, how are you going to pay for that? I didn't want my son to have all this debt at the end.
Mm. Mm.
So I kept getting, at the time, I had gone to an adult education classes. I don't know if they have them where you are.
Mm.
And I went to one on career changes. I
Yeah.
was in my early 40s, I think. And I was like, geez, what am I going to do? And, technology was happening, right? I was interested in that, but in the very beginning, just so young people know,
Yeah.
the computers were just a command prompt.
Yeah.
You had to like type, you're
Yeah.
in DOS,
Black
and
screen
then
and the white font.
yeah. And if you didn't know the command prompt or you got one letter wrong, we go,
Yeah.
nope, that doesn't work. And it was very frustrating. So it was actually a doctor that said to me, oh, you should get Windows.
Mm.
And I said, what's Windows? And he said, well, it goes over the DOS prompt and it works and it's much simpler. Anyway, I was in the early stages. You guys have no idea how barbaric and primitive it was back then. But the adult education class, the teacher said to me, well, what are you interested? I said, number one, I got to make money. I
Yeah.
mean, I got to make some money. Okay. And he said, well, you have a great art background. Why don't you do computer art? And I was like, no, because there's no money in it. If you're an artist, there's no money in whatever art you're doing here. Okay. No, not art. I was doing art on the side, but no. So he said, well, how about becoming a Novell engineer? I don't, people probably never even heard of Novell, but it was before Microsoft.
Okay.
Okay. It
Mm.
was a big company before Microsoft, and it was a big company in computer engineering.
Mm.
And so I went and got Novell training.
Wow.
And then I really don't like this. And I met an Asian friend of mine. She's an Asian American. She said, maybe we should get Windows certified, like Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's just this idea, like let's do Windows instead.
Yeah.
And so and that's not inexpensive either. And Microsoft, they like it was very unfair. And there's so much injustice in the world, but like there were a lot of guys who were really good at computer engineering,
Mm.
but they're not good at tests and taking tests. And Microsoft tests were hard. They were very hard. You had to, fortunately, they had these CDs back then, and they were from people who had taken these tests, and they would like help brainwash you to know the answers that Microsoft was going to, and most of it had nothing to do with what you were going to do in computer engineering. There was hardly anything on those tests that I've ever actually physically done as a Microsoft engineer. They were just to screen out people who couldn't take tests,
Mm.
which is such an injustice. And I just can't. The thing I hate most in the world is injustice.
Mm.
So anyway, I you had to take 12 tests, and
Yeah.
there were these testing centers, and I would put all these Microsoft books in my car,
Mhm.
and I would go to the testing center, and I'd go in, and at the time, which was 25, 30 years ago, I they were charging $100 a test to take the test. Okay, so I'd go into the testing center, they'd put you in a little booth. You had a piece of blank paper, a pencil, and a computer,
Yeah.
and then it started asking you questions, and they were all multiple choice, right?
Yeah.
And they would give you these scenarios, and they would go on and on, multiple paragraphs to sort of confuse you when there was really like just one tiny little answer in there, and you only had a certain amount of time. And this line would come up at the end after you were finished, and it would start going across your computer screen. And then if you didn't pass, it would go big giant capital letters, fail,
Yeah.
fail. well. So, and if it didn't do that, it got to the end and said pass. So, and if I failed, and well, I hadn't failed that many, but I failed a few,
Mm.
I'd go back out to my car. I'd look up all the answers. I'd take that piece of paper because I'd quickly write them down. Then like, I don't know this one. Uh, Go out to my car, look up the answer, go back in, say to the person, hit me again. And I would pay another $100. And I wasn't leaving that testing center until I passed that test.
Wow, that's so much of persistence,
And
determination.
the other thing was if you can remember just little reminders. Like, for example, back then, they would always go through these long paragraphs of scenarios and this team is in Australia and this team is in India and this team is in Japan and this team is in Chicago and this one does this and it would just go on and on and on. You'd be like, and they go, where are the resources?
Mm,
And then where are the people is what I had to remember.
mm,
Where are the people? Where are the resources? This answer to every one of the questions on that test was going to be where are the people and where are the resources? And 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 I had this little saying in my mind, Ed's a person, the people are over here because it had something to do with where the people were. And I almost got 100 on that test just because I had this little idea in my head about Ed and people and resources.
that's good. Okay, so let's move towards. So you've
Sure.
all your testings, and then you entered into the technology domain. I mean, technology as
Right.
a career. You made a huge career change from art to,
Right.
and then what
Oh, and Microsoft made a big deal out of me because I was in my 40s and I was a single mom and I was doing a career change
happened?
to becoming a Microsoft engineer. Oh, and they were like just promoting me all over the place, change your career to Microsoft. And they love women in technology. And I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
Because women usually can explain to the managers what's happening,
Mm.
right?
I love
Right?
that.
Even if you're not the greatest engineer, like the men can be like the greatest engineer ever, if they can't explain to the managers what's happening and why this is costing 500 and $1,000 an hour,
Yeah,
they're not going to get the job,
yeah.
right? Because everyone knows in technology, if you're certified, you can call Microsoft
Mm.
and they will walk you through whatever's going on. And if the engineer you're talking to, you get a sense right away, you know more than they do, and they aren't going to be helpful. You go, put me up to a second level engineer, put
Yeah,
me up to a third level engineer, and you got someone who would just go boom, 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 go here, just like you did at the beginning. Do this, do this, do this, and it'd be fixed, and I'd get it fixed in 15 minutes. They would rather have you get help and fix it in 15 minutes than spend all day trying to fix it yourself and wasting all their money.
exactly. Yeah, that's true. Hmm. Hmm.
And so then I was like, okay, now I'm not afraid to ask for help
Mm.
because I'm gonna fix this and I'm gonna fix it fast.
Mm.
Don't do it alone. Go
Yeah,
get an expert on the phone.
that's good. Okay, so let's come back again to your career transition. And then, so you were working in Microsoft and as a technologist or
Right.
engineer for a long time. And then what happened?
Okay, so I got a lot of certifications because I knew people weren't gonna think I was any good if I wasn't certified. So I got Microsoft, I got Novell, I got Microsoft, I got Citrix, I got a certified technology project manager. I became the best technology project manager in Boston because as you can see, I'm like, don't mess with me is like kind of my philosophy. And I became much more bold and strong. I was a very quiet girl when I was little. And I quickly learned don't be quiet, don't shut up, don't let people intimidate you, don't let people bully you around, and also don't notice that there's injustices and just be quiet because you will feel terrible about yourself. The times that I was quiet and didn't do anything and didn't say anything, I felt terrible. And the times that I did something about it, I felt great about myself. So, and also, you will be much more successful if you do something than if you don't do something.
Exactly. I love whatever you said right now. It's like a motivational, motivational, inspiring talk that you gave, you know, to do something and uh, to get things done,
Yes.
and also love the fact that women sometimes tend to keep quiet, which is not okay. We have to talk, where it is needed. All right. So,
At a certain point in time, I made a lot. I don't know. People don't usually like talk about money, but I made $200,000 a year as a Microsoft engineer,
yeah.
technology project manager. But I worked 80 hours a week.
Mm,
Okay, and I had children, and I did not like that. And um, I I started getting downsized. Okay, because people started to come to the country who were experts from other parts of the world, and they would do what I was doing. They would do it for $30,000,
mm,
and so I started getting downsized. Well,
yeah.
we get, and I even built an entire network. When my first job, I didn't know what that would mean, but I was like, I can do it, you know. And so I was getting downsized,
Mm,
and they were putting in somebody from somewhere else that took what I had done and set up a whole network and set everything up so it worked great. And they would fire me. They wouldn't call it firing, they would call it
okay.
downsizing. But
Research.
you're getting fired, okay? Because you're not going to get paid anymore. And I would lose a job, and then but I was in high demand. Like when I would come home, I'd have so many messages on my phone. We have a great opportunity for you, because I was in great demand. I had gotten a lot of publicity from Microsoft, but they would never guarantee me any length of time. So
Yeah.
I'd get a job, and then I'd work and do some really good work for a while, but then they would downsize me again and put in somebody else who would work for less.
Mm.
And the salaries were starting to become, uh, and from $200,000 to $30,000. No,
Mm,
no, I'm sorry, that's not happening. And in the US, the tax code is all aimed at working people who have a job,
yeah.
right? So I made $200,000, right? That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Mm.
Well, I paid $80,000 in taxes
Tax was
because it
third.
was it
Mm,
was a job,
right.
okay? And and then I was like, this is yes. I'm like, this is not right. And so I went and took another course where they talked about the tax code and Wall Street and all this other stuff. And they just said, you need to get a business,
Mm,
some kind of business, because if you have a business, you can write every single thing off. I can write off this computer that I'm talking on. I can write off my phone. I can write off the space in my house. My taxes, as soon as I owned a business, I didn't even do anything with it. As soon as I owned it, my taxes went from 80,000 to 40,000 in half.
yeah. So I mean, it's really fascinating to hear your journey in terms of where you started as an art teacher, and then you went on to become a technologist, and then from there you decided to move into building a financial freedom for yourself, for which you
Right,
decided to get into some kind of a business, and then you came into online businesses. And
right.
how did you reach to the personalized medicine and the genetics, life genetics kind of a domain?
Okay. Well, I started to explore some of the other injustices of the world, and I always was really, really interested in health because both my parents were alcoholics, and they had violent tendencies, and there was a lot of turmoil and violence in my home, and I started to wonder. Um, is this genetic? As soon as they did the Human Genome Project, and oh, it was a long time ago, like over 30 years. I wonder if this is genetic, which it can be, right? Alcoholism can be genetic.
Yes.
And, uh, and we know now that American Indians can get addicted to alcohol. The Irish have a tendency, to get addicted. Many people are addicted to alcohol. So then I started to research more about that, and I found out that alcohol is actually poison,
Mm.
right? So why doesn't it poison some people, but it poisons other people?
Mm.
My dad died at 52, right? My mother lived to 88. They were both alcoholics. They both smoked cigarettes.
Mm.
How come?
Mm.
And it has to do with genetics.
Mm.
And I started to get really into, I went to a convention for jobs. I'm sure a lot of people are still doing that, looking for jobs. And I went and I met this amazing man. And that's why I keep saying, put yourself out there, be open. I met this amazing genetic scientist. He lives in Italy. I said to him, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so tired of getting downsized and fighting. And he said to me, you should do lifestyle genetics.
Mm. Okay.
And I said, well, that sounds good, but I don't know anything about that. And he goes, I'm going to teach you. I'll teach you everything you need to know. I said, really? Why would you do that? Because you're going to help me sell my genetic screening in the US. Okay. And I did. Um, I've sold hundreds and hundreds of genetic screenings in the US for him and his company.
I would like to you to share some of the best life experiences that you have had.
Find a way to have leverage. Do you know what leverage is, Dr. Chandra?
Yeah, so
Good. Your audience may not.
yes, let's
Leverage means you get paid on more than just your efforts. Like if you're famous, you can make $5 million, right? Oprah, all these, they got no trouble making that. But how about you? You have to find a way to get leverage. And I'm very leery of the stock market. A lot of people my age, it crashed.
Mm.
It crashed a while ago. I don't know if you were alive for that, but it wasn't that long ago. And tons of people in the US who were financially secure, they lost everything. They lost their homes, they're living in trailers, they're working in Amazon warehouses for $15 an hour at 70 and 80 years old. They lost everything. And you can get like tons of patented products together, start training people. They can work part-time on the side. I started what I do now on Sundays because I was working 80 hours as an engineer and I was getting downsized. We could build leverage.
So for today, I would like to conclude this, this podcast.
Okay. It's been great.
We have been talking, since we have been talking all about your life journey so far, what is that message that you want to give to women specifically, being someone who has seen life for all these decades? What is that message that you want to give to our women audience?
I'm going to say, just like my teacher tried to discourage me and say, you can't be an artist and a scientist. You can be whatever you want to be. If you find something that you're excited about and that you're passionate about and you're good at it, you can do it. Okay. I don't care what anybody else says. You can do it. And you find other people who will support you and encourage you and not try to stick a boot on your face and hold you back. You can do it.
Okay, perfect. That's a wonderful closure for this wonderful conversation, Kathy. And I'm really glad that we could, bring you into this podcast of She Side. I look forward to hearing more about your energy and enthusiastic work that you're doing in this domain. And I wish you very best for it.
Thank you so much. I feel the same about you and
Decades,
everybody
I would
out there.
say.
Women can do it.
Yes. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, before you move on to the next video, I have a request to make. If you like this video and this podcast, if you gained some valuable information out of this video, I would request you to click on the subscribe button as well as follow us on our social media pages. The links are given in our description. Also, do sign up to our website, www.shesitmag.com. We have amazing women stories as well as various women initiatives that are getting launched in the coming months. I'll see you there.